His network of premium car dealerships was gearing up for a lavish rooftop launch in SoHo, and he planned to drown out any scandal with spotlights, music, and free champagne. But when the lights died at the very moment of applause, and the screen flashed a notice that the accounts were frozen, Matt Collins understood. The betrayal hadn't come from outside. It had grown from his own greed and had trained him not to hear people. The stakes weren't abstract. The business could collapse, customers' money might vanish, and his wife would leave because she was tired of lies and staged calm. He still had a choice that night: run in an expensive suit or be the man who admits his guilt and stays. As a kid, he hauled boxes of parts in a cramped garage in Queens, where an old ring of keys to his first used Ford Mustang hung on a nail by the door, and that metallic jingle sounded like the music of independence. He rose fast because he believed only results were honest while the path was negotiable, and because he saw the world as a chain of tasks and people as variables to be managed. Nate Harper had been his best friend from the block. They split pizza and cheap coffee, cruised auto swap meets, argued over the price of brake discs, and dreamed of their own showroom. Later, Nate became his CFO, and their friendship quietly slid into cold calculus because that made the numbers easier and the awkward questions quieter. Hannah, his wife, asked for fewer nights at the office and fewer murky explanations about rebalancing liquidity, but he answered with flowers and presents because that felt more efficient than a truthful conversation. For the last 2 years he had expanded aggressively, opened new locations, ordered rare trims, and negotiated with the lending bank on terms he called bold, and the lawyers called borderline. He let Nate build intricate structures, put his own signature on them, and closed his eyes to temporary gaps between receivables and payables because the dashboards looked great and suppliers believed in the future. New York smelled like wet asphalt that fall. Steam billowed from the Broadway manholes and looked like set dressing. The screech of subway brakes below made the streets feel alive, and paper cups of deli coffee burned his palms and gave him the illusion of control. He thought he could hold the balance and step over the audits because he had done it before, but this season everything converged. Letters from the New York State Department of Financial Services, calls from the bank, and careful questions from the insurer that couldn't be silenced by a press release. Today was supposed to be salvational, a rooftop gala at the SoHo flagship, a meeting with the manufacturer, and a contract that would bridge the cash shortfall. He ate standing up, washed down a turkey sandwich with cheap black deli coffee, and repeated to himself, "Everything is under control." He was no kid. He knew the market. He knew how to push things through. He didn't want to admit that he had surrendered to convenient blindness. He hadn't asked Nate where the liquidity's sudden smoothness came from because he liked the answer, "from operations." And he hadn't read the fine print on the policies because he preferred the word coverage. He knew that was his guilt. Greed and pride, mixed with a habit of manipulation, made him an easy target for betrayal. In the morning on the corner, he squeezed a hot paper cup. Yellow cabs drifted lazily through the red. The subway grated underfoot. His goal was simple and crude: survive until evening without a blow-up, close a couple of payments, and show everyone a shiny picture. The obstacle was a stack of urgent emails from the bank and insurer, and a cool, brief call from a supplier who wasn't going to wait. "What's the credit committee's position?" he asked, standing where the ventilation grills exhaled heat. "We're seeing suspicious transactions to related parties," the bank manager said, and went silent. "We'll settle today, split the flows, and show our partners," he said, listening to paper rustle on the other end. "We'll suspend new operations pending review," the voice said, and the pause hit harder than a refusal. Why am I betting on a spectacular night when the wiring is smoldering during the day? Why do I believe gloss replaces scrutiny? He felt irritation at everyone but himself, and the irritation at himself was stronger. The morning's conclusion was honest. He was trying to buy time with a presentation, and time had become more expensive than money. At the glass box on Mercer Street, he found Nate with a blue folder and tidy stacks of reports. His goal was to straighten the ledgers and greenlight payments before evening. The obstacle was intermediate transfers to trust accounts, vague in conversation, and sharp in the lines on paper. "You saw the letter from NYDFS?" he asked. "Routine," Nate said with a small smile. "Packet prepared, all explainable?" "And these transfers to Alaster Holdings?" Matt asked, looking over his glasses. "Short liquidity bridges," Nate said without looking up, and slid a chart where arrows dovetailed into a beautiful diagonal. "Drop the poetry," Matt said. "Those are our funds, not bridges." "We'll pull them back after signing," Nate said, then added quietly, "You taught me this." "Is this the same guy who hauled wheels with me at midnight and argued about spark plugs? Or did I change, and he merely learned my style too well?" He felt distrust, anger, and confusion because the borders between their roles had turned into a convenient smokescreen. The mini-conclusion was bitter. He didn't control what he bragged about, and that hurt his pride more than the balance sheet. At the bank's glass conference room, the view was clearer than their figures. His goal was to expand the credit line and slow down compliance because without that, the evening would be a trap. The obstacle was an internal alert, and the formula, suspend pending review, impervious to pressure. "We're not freezing you forever," the manager said, "but we're delaying any new collateralized operations. You have a related party issue and inconsistencies in your insurance claims." "We're the best showroom for the brand in the state," he said. "We have a test drive wait list, payroll on Friday, and the manufacturer on our roof tonight." "I hear you," the manager said, "and I see risks I'm obliged to consider. You cannot bargain with the bank's automation. You cannot intimidate an algorithm. You cannot sweet-talk a regulator with a smile." He was scared and sick of himself. He had to iron his voice flat because his pulse thudded in his temple. The conclusion was simple. A chain of temporary fixes had grown a life of its own. At home, Hannah set a bowl of apples on the table and placed crumpled grocery receipts by his plate. It looked like a reproach that didn't need words. His goal was to calm her and prove things were under control. The obstacle was her memory of nights without calls and her knowledge of transfers he forgot to mention. "Are you leaving again before dawn?" she asked softly. "Tonight is the finish," he said. "We'll sign, make announcements, and it all closes." "What announcements about the insurance you pitched as a shield that doesn't cover your own risks?" she asked. "It's complicated language, Hannah. We'll manage." "I want a husband, not a press release," she said, and cleared the empty glasses as if removing what blocked speech. "When did you last tell her the truth without subtractions, without checking if it paid?" Shame was direct and relentless. It killed his appetite and made his words heavy. He understood the marriage was on the edge and no car would substitute for a simple, honest talk. The insurer's call was stripped of emotion. His goal was to confirm coverage and calm himself and the bank. The obstacle was a policy exclusion and a very narrow corridor of definitions. "We see filed losses and timing discrepancies," the adjuster said. "We'll need confirmation there was no intentional misrepresentation, otherwise an exclusion applies." "You sold us this as fraud protection," he said. "Protection from events outside your control," she said. "Control appears debatable here." "You mean you'll cover nothing?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "We mean we need documents," she said. "Did I build a system that's comfortable until audit day and empty on audit day?" He was scared and alone because exclusion sounded like a sentence in plain speech. The conclusion was hard. Insurance doesn't cover what you commit consciously or by convenient neglect. Regulators arrived without fuss, gray jackets, badges, stapled demands, more convincing than any press kit. His goal was to win a couple of days and present voluntary cooperation. The obstacle was a formal request for documents and a warning about liability for concealment. We're seeing transactions to Alaster Holdings and 2 insurance cases with mismatched amounts, the examiner said. We need everything on related structures and access to email. We're ready to help. Give us till Monday. We'll organize the data, he said, looking for sympathy and finding none. Till evening, the examiner answered. Profit is not a justification. How long are you going to speak to the law in the language of marketing when the law answers with stamps? He was anxious, but for the first time, faintly willing to name things what they were. The conclusion, postponing the truth doesn't work where the law is present. Postponement is an admission of weakness. Upstairs in accounting, the monitors glowed tiredly. A woman named Maya with neat hair and a steady gaze walked him through lines that didn't lie. The goal was to grasp the scale of leakage and stop at least some of it. The obstacle was the pattern visible to anyone willing to look. Money flowed to a partner account, then to a trust, then came back with a sag in the middle. See this sequence, Maya said. Customer prepayment, partner account, trust, return with a delay. Authorized signatory at the partner, a contractor who worked here a year ago. Connection to Nate? He asked. Indirect, she said, but traceable across emails and overlapping IP addresses. He exhaled like he was breathing for the first time all day. Stop what can be stopped and preserve everything, he said. Already preserved per NYDFS request, Maya replied. Didn't I bless this architecture because I liked the word optimization, and now it means whole? He felt guilt and anger at himself, a sobering blend. The conclusion, participation is not just a signature. Silent consent is a choice you answer for. By evening, SoHo lit its windows. On the flagship roof, they set a stage, rolled out a black carpet, positioned spots. The wind tugged at ties and made smiles fragile. His goal was to hold the show without a hitch, catch the manufacturer at the right emotion, and sign backstage. The obstacle was a phone filling with bank and NYDFS alerts, and Nate's entrance, calm, as if the world weren't cracking. We're sparkling, the PR director said. Just smile, no comments. Nate laid a hand on his shoulder. I'll straighten everything after the presentation. Now, Matt said, tightening on Nate's elbow. It's liquidity, Nate said. You taught me not to keep eggs in one basket. We'll return it all after the contract. That sounds like theft with a promise, Matt said. It sounds like business, Nate answered with a cold smile. And here's the limit of the game whose rules I dictated, now surprised my pupil beat me. He felt rage, fear, and sudden clarity. No more hiding the choice behind the word business. The conclusion, stopping the show, was the only honest move if any human thing could still be saved. The climax happened almost theatrically, without a director. The lights went out, the music cut, phone screens flared like foreign eyes, and the service monitor blinked. Operations blocked. Contact bank. He saw confused clients, a whispering supplier, the PR director gesturing smile, and he knew he would either run into the wings or step forward. He raised his hand and spoke into a microphone that made the silence feel physical. Stop the program. The generator coughed, and one row of lamps came up. The stage looked less beautiful, more honest. My name is Matt Collins. I own this network. You came for a celebration of a car, but I have a different conversation. Straight. He spoke without ornament because any lie would be louder than music. Facts. The New York State Department of Financial Services sent us inquiries about transfers. The bank restricted operations. The insurer questioned coverage. The money is part your prepayments, part our loans, part payroll. For too long, I treated results as a license for any instrument. I leaned on people, massaged reports, and ignored schemes because we were growing, and it worked. That is false. It's a betrayal of your trust and of my family's. I'm guilty. He paused and continued for the people who lived this business day to day. I know our mechanics by name, Luis, Jay, Maya. They come at 7, drink coffee from paper deli cups, argue about brake pads, and laugh at our corporate merch. We have clients who saved for a down payment. We have Maggie at the counter who writes on yellow sticky notes who to call when a kid needs winter tires. We have a driver who always grabs a sesame bagel because it's filling. We have rent. We have payroll on Friday. We have taxes. I won't hide behind a show. He looked at Nate at the edge of the stage. Some transfers were run by you under my signature, and I should have stopped you and myself. I didn't. That's on me. He drew breath and chose. Here's what I'm doing. 1, I'm stopping the launch and I won't sign anything until we meet with the regulator. 2, tomorrow morning we open our doors to employees and clients. We'll put the reports on the table. 3, I start selling assets, collector cars, my personal garage, and all the corporate toys, and I cut my salary to 0 until prepayments are returned and payroll is covered. 4, I step down as CEO and hand operations to an independent manager for the duration of the review. 5, I stay. I will cooperate with NYDFS, the bank, and the insurer. I admit this was greed and pride. Tonight, I begin to change. No applause, only silence and a few heavy breaths. In that silence, he felt relief because he had stopped pretending. Nate moved closer and whispered, but the mic caught it. You drowned us all. No, Matt said. My greed drowned us, and you stopped being my friend the day you decided money was everything. The PR director covered her face with her hand. The supplier raised his eyebrows. Someone cut the music entirely, and the wind on the roof grew louder. He was afraid of the consequences, criminal and financial, and at the same time felt a plain resolve that looked poor but was real. He understood he had finally said what he should have said a year ago. He had no shield, only a chance. Afterward, people drifted away slowly, as if testing whether this was a prank. Mechanics stood together. Someone at the bar stacked glassware into a crate. Gold-foiled business cards lay on a side table like dead butterflies. His goal was not to vanish, but to start untangling consequences at once. The obstacle was exhaustion, confusion, and the anger of those who felt cheated. Is it true about the prepayments? A tall man in a leather jacket asked. Yes, Matt said. But tomorrow we start refunds and sign a plan. I won't leave until we're done. What if you can't? A woman asked, hugging a folder to her chest. I'll still stay, and I'll keep paying back by selling whatever I can, he said. And for the first time, it didn't sound like a slogan. Luis the mechanic came over and said softly, We'll come tomorrow. Don't short us again. I won't, Matt said, and nodded. Nate watched, turned, and walked to the elevator without a goodbye. The friendship had cracked earlier. He'd chosen not to notice. He felt untheatrical sadness, and alongside it, relief that the role had been named at last. The conclusion, his new capital wasn't money, but the readiness to be present and do dull, heavy work. On the way home, the yellow cabs lined the curb in a chain, steam cut by headlights, the subway's scream echoing in his chest as he passed the grills. In his hand, he carried a plastic container of untouched canapes. It looked ridiculous but practical. At least there would be something on the table. His goal was to reach the kitchen without turning on the TV and without convincing himself that things would fix themselves. How quickly the parade of confidence had ended. How much were those speeches worth? How much was, I'll be at the office at 8, worth now? He was tired, afraid, and straight-backed by necessity. The conclusion, getting home was not geography, but the decision to live without props. Morning brought a glassed conference room labeled folders, paper dust smell, rising from cardboard cups. 2 people from NYDFS and the bank manager sat without smiles. His goal was to sign whatever was needed to open the process and not bargain where bargaining was unethical. The obstacle was his instinct to negotiate and the legal reality where you only discuss the order of production. We'll provide full access to email, he said. Timelines, your call. Primary tranche today, the examiner said. The rest by schedule. Independent manager? Candidate agreed? The bank manager asked. Yes, he said. 2:00. I'm stepping down as CEO for the review period. Insurer? Document sent. We acknowledge the dispute. We won't push. It felt strange to use plain phrases and not try to raise the stakes. He was anxious, and for once, sure he wasn't lying even to himself. The conclusion: cooperation wasn't a display of weakness. It was the only tool that worked when truth outranked image. They gathered employees in a showroom without music or carpet, only long tables with printouts and thermoses of coffee poured into the same deli paper cups. His goal was to explain the plan and give people a reason to come back tomorrow. The obstacle was fatigue, distrust, and questions about money. We'll return prepayments in order, he said. Today we sell 2 collector cars. The money covers payroll and the first refunds. What about you? Someone asked. No salary for me until we stabilize, he said. How long? As long as it takes, and I'll be here every day. Let it sound coarse. My reputation now is my presence, not a media kit. He felt awkward and calm. The conclusion: his new role was to be near the bottom of the list and at the front of the line for hard choices. The manufacturer hadn't left the roof the night before. They wanted explanations on paper. His goal was to avoid burning the bridge entirely. The obstacle was the tape of his speech already sitting with their lawyers. We value the candor, the representative said, but we need to be sure your problems won't become ours. We won't sign until the first phase of the review is complete, he said. I understand if you move our quota. We'll move it, the rep said. Sometimes it's better to lose today to have someone to talk to tomorrow. It was bitter, but the bitterness of an adult decision. The conclusion: a pause isn't an ending if there's work inside the pause. He called Hannah midday without hedging. His goal was to begin to restore trust at home, not just at work. The obstacle was her right not to believe and not to wait. I said everything on the roof, he told her, and I've started doing it. I watched the video, she said. It was honest. Can I come home earlier today? He asked. Come when you can. Just come, she said. How many times did I promise earlier and still choose later? He was ashamed, and this shame didn't need a defensive speech. The conclusion: home wasn't a refuge from the truth. It was the place where the truth had to arrive first. At the storage facility, the collector cars stood under heavy covers, dust on chrome mirrors. The appraiser read out figures from a tablet without awe. His goal was to sell quickly without tricks. The obstacle was the temptation to polish the deal and keep favorites. This one, auction, the appraiser said. This, private buyer. This, we can get a premium if you include the key set. He took out the keys, thumbed the embossing, and said, included. It hurt, but it was useful pain. It fixed habits more than numbers. He felt sorry for the iron, not for himself. The conclusion: he was parting with the props of his pride, and breathing got easier. Nate came late to an empty office. His goal was to end the thing between them with words, not just lawyers. The obstacle was the machinery already in motion and interests beyond theirs. You staged a spectacle, Nate said. I told the truth, Matt said. Truth is court, Nate said. Truth is court and conversation, Matt replied. You were my friend and became my opponent the day you decided we were above rules, and I helped because it suited me. So you save yourself and hang it all on me? Nate asked. I'm not saving myself, Matt said. I'm owning my part and cooperating. Do the same. We both walked here, but I have to be the first to stop. It hurt and felt empty because the friendship had died long before the words. The conclusion: their knot of personal and business would be untied not by nostalgia, but by procedure. On Sunday he went to a small Queen service bay where he once hauled boxes, oil smell, walls marked with handprints, a paper cup heating his fingers better than any fireplace. His goal was to remember not a romanticized past, but rules he still knew how to live by. The obstacle was his own habit of turning any experience into a legend. He walked between lifts, said hello to a mechanic who didn't recognize him, and asked the price of a timing belt swap. "Went up," the man said, and pointed at the price board. Honesty is a price board, and the correct belt installed as stated, not almost. He felt calmer because he saw the simplicity of work he could return to, at least in spirit. The conclusion? His new strategy wasn't shine, it was comprehensibility. A week later, he processed the first real refund to a family with a tight budget and many hopes. His goal was to fulfill a promise with his hands, not his mouth. The obstacle was the discomfort of admitting a mistake to people he'd persuaded to dream. "We brought the receipt," the woman said, lifting a carefully folded sheet from a clear plastic sleeve. "We're ready to return it today," he said, and slid the check across. The man nodded in silence. The woman said, "Thank you," softly, as if afraid to break it. This is why the rooftop speech mattered. Shame and relief meet in a single action. He felt lighter because a deed had turned into a fact. The conclusion, paying back also builds, not buildings, but a stance toward yourself. He sent a plain internal letter to staff without PR varnish. His goal was to fix the rules they would follow. The obstacle was their suspicion. It was just pretty words again. "We work in the open," he wrote. "All payments, one shared ledger. All questions, weekly meeting. No temporary schemes, no liquidity bridges, no ad that outruns the facts. If it's a slogan, it's a practical one." He was afraid of slipping into old games and put small guardrails in his own path. The conclusion, discipline is renovation on the inside, not a concert out front. Late at night, the city hummed less. He returned to their old kitchen in Queens, where that same ring of Mustang keys hung by the door and chimed softly without promises, like an empty glass set down on a table. The drip coffee maker did its stubborn work and filled his mug drop by drop. The smell was plain, free of tasting notes and marketing adjectives. He poured milk by eye, the way he had before measuring spoons and timers. Hannah padded in wearing thick socks, set a bowl of apples on the table, sat across from him. There was no big emotion, only fatigue and cautious hope, which never comes with fireworks. "I filed the documents and started the sales," he said. "2 more refunds tomorrow and a meeting with the manager." "I'm glad you were on that roof and not under the stage," she said. "I see you at the table, and I don't hear a press release." He nodded and smiled the way people smile when, for the first time in a long time, they're not playing a part. He held his mug in both hands and listened to the drops hitting the glass pot, and to his thoughts finally stop arguing. It didn't erase the past or cancel the betrayal. It didn't miraculously restore trust, clients, or money. But wealth had taught a simple and brutal lesson. Greed and pride make you a target for betrayal, and money without conscience holds neither friends nor a home. He admitted his guilt and chose to stay and change because only then did the emptiness stop feeling like a law of life and turn into a pause where you can breathe and tell the truth.